Your website through the eyes of a first-time visitor with Joanna La Fleur. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out the podcast this week. I want to start first by telling you some exciting news about our ministry. We just launched a brand new kids division of our ministry called 1230 Kids. We've had the honor and privilege over the years to partner with some folks in the kids ministry space, like Seeds Family Worship, Awana, Yancey, Doorpost Songs, Go Curriculum, and others. And we've done a lot of custom media for kids and kids organizations. So we wanted to launch our own site. So I want to encourage you to go to 1230kids.com. That's 1230kids.com. 1230kids.com. It's packed with an entire library of ready-made media for kids, pastors, and for kids worship experiences. I'm talking countdowns, mini movies, games, full kids series boxes, service packs, social media graphics, and more. Huge library, and we're just getting started. Your children's pastor can purchase media individually on the site. I'm talking graphics for like $3. Very, very affordable media. And they can save money. You guys can save money at your churches by doing our subscription, our Go Unlimited plan. Plans start as low as $33 a month. So we're trying to make it super affordable. And that $33 a month is unlimited downloads for an entire year. So we're trying to make stuff really affordable for you and your church. And we're just getting started with the kids site. So I want to encourage you to check it out. In fact, we have a bunch of free media, a whole page that's entirely free. So you can test out our content, see if it's right, see if it's a good fit for your church. Again, 1230kids.com. 1230kids.com. All right, I'm really excited about this week's episode of our show as I welcome Joanna La Fleur. Joanna is an author, a blogger, a communications consultant, a TV host. She does it all. And this week I'm going to chat with Joanna about your church website from the eyes of a first-time visitor. So what are the things that you need to make sure that you focus on when it comes to visitors to your site? We're going to dive right into my interview with Joanna right after this.
And how will they know? How will they hear the stories of people like Nadia and Jacqueline? That's why we need you, the National Association of Religious Broadcasters. It's through the reporting and storytelling that you do, of organizations like yours that can serve as catalysts for advocacy.
Since 1944, the NRB has been a light unto the world. And today, your 1,100 members reach countless millions in this nation and across the globe. So let me first off take this opportunity just to thank you for all that you've done for faith and freedom over the years. The work of the NRB has borne fruit for generations.
And I want you to tell people about Jesus. And if religious broadcasting is about anything, then it has to be about that. And I encourage you tonight to be bold, to be clear, and to be about the business.
The gospel of Christ compels contrite, compassionate, courageous action on a multiplicity of culture issues. So let's apply it consistently across our culture while spreading this gospel intentionally across all cultures. And in the end, when our time is done, may it be said of us that we loved the Lord and we led his church for the demonstration of his glory, the display of his gospel amidst the most pressing social issues of our day.
Hey guys, today I welcome speaker, podcaster, TV host, communications consultant, all around wonderful talent, the host of the Word Made Digital podcast, Joanna La Fleur. Joanna, what's going on? Thanks for hanging out.
Oh my goodness, Carl, I'm so glad to be here. It took us a bit to figure out how to get here in this room together, and now I'm so glad that we're talking.
Yeah, me too. So before we started recording, you were showing me your new pad in Toronto.
Yes.
And you hung me out with a laptop across the balcony. So I was fearful for my life there for a second.
Yeah, does Apple cover if I drop this from the 20th story?
Yeah, maybe I'm a witness of being dropped. And I promise it was an accident, Apple. She just dropped me.
I don't know what happened. It came this way. It looked.
That's right. That's right. Well, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're getting settled in your new place, and that we finally get a chance to chat. I love what you do. Kind of give us an overview, if you would, of kind of who you are, what you do, and how you serve the church.
Yeah. Well, I come with a background of pastoral work. I had a business degree, and then I realized I was serving in church, a business marketing degree. And so I realized I probably should do some theology training. So I did a master's in theology while I was in a pastoral ministry role in a local church. And in Canada, we would have called it a mega church. In America, you might have called it a normal sized church, but multi-site, few thousand people church. And when I was there, my world outside of that began to expand. And really, I gained a heart for all this work that we'd done in the larger church. What could we do to help serve more churches, and instead of just one? And so I went out a couple of years ago. I went out to start Word Made Digital. And so I say 50% of the time I'm a communicator myself, which is the Word Made Digital podcast. And I'm part of a TV show here in Canada, national TV show for women. I'd like a talk show like The View, but Christian version. And, I speak at events and conferences and things like that. So 50% I'm a communicator and love to talk about Jesus and how to communicate the best news in the world. And then the other 50% is the consulting. So that's working with myself and a small team, working with churches and Christian ministries to help them communicate the best news in the world. And so we, do that in a marketing, communications, branding, digital strategy capacity.
Well, one thing I love about you is we could get on and talk about 1,000 different things.
Yeah, that's true.
And we could go on all day. But one thing I really want to hit on today, and we'll kind of walk through each kind of step by step, but is websites. Okay. Mm-hmm. So church websites, and especially this idea of the first time visitor. So using your website as your front door, as your first impression. And so maybe from a, communication standpoint, marketing standpoint, I'd love for you to, and pastoral ministry standpoint as well, talk to me about, maybe set us up here. Talk to me about the importance of my church website. And do you agree that it is the front door, that it is what people are going to look at, check you out on before they visit perhaps, or whatever? Kind of set us up here on the importance of your church website.
Yeah, I continue to call the website the front door of the church, because social media is a huge thing, but it's kind of like all the neighbors talking about you. You don't really have control entirely over what people see and where it is. But the website is the thing that you own and that you over time can cultivate and have all kinds of content and useful tools on there for people. And so I do call it the front door of the church, because most people, before they come to your church, statistically, they're going to go to your church website before they come to your church. If at the very least, they're just going to go to check what time do the services start or the program that they want to come to. And so it's the first impression, really. People might have checked you out on social media first, but you don't own that stuff, in the sense that some other company like Facebook owns Instagram, and they're controlling in some way what people are seeing. But the website, you own it. You get full control over how that experience feels and looks for people. And it's, their first impression of you as a community.
So I think you bring up a good point, that you own the space, and we've gotten a lot of questions, especially over the pandemic, of where do I need to put my stream? Where do I put my live stream? Where do I, what platform do I need to focus on? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Is it whatever? And kind of the big thing that I've pushed is your website. It needs to be the anchor point that you send people to, and my reasonings are that you own that environment. And Facebook is encouraging you to scroll. YouTube is encouraging you to click on the funny cat video. But I'm going to encourage you to click on a small group sign up or take notes in the sermon, or I can control the environment on my website. And so would you agree with that? And how does that relate to, what you've seen over the last few months?
Yeah, I think the church website is definitely the most logical place, the place where you have the most control over how people experience your church. I mean, even just on YouTube is a great tool, but as you're right, people could be distracted by the cat videos coming up beside. It's harder to get them to do a call to action.
And I'm not saying don't be on those platforms.
Right.
I think we should be on those platforms, but your anchor point maybe be your website.
Yeah, it's sort of thinking, I think people want to find your content where they most prefer to look. So if they most prefer YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or, I don't know, TikTok, whatever it is, then that's where they're going to be searching. So it is good to be on all these, it's good to be on some of these other platforms. We can't do it all, but as much as we can to be present in these places so people can find you. But again, the experience you can create for someone on your own website of your live stream, of pointing people to next steps that they can take, engaging them in even like a private prayer chat room or something like that you can set up. It's harder to do that on some of those other platforms.
Yeah. So the name of this podcast is Making Sunday Happen. So bring us into that. Why does my church website have to do with making Sunday happen? Why is that important?
Yeah, well, I think, as we already said, it will probably be the place people go before they come to Sunday. So if someone's not been to your church before, they're going to go to the website to get a sense of what does it look and feel like? What times are the services? Do I need to know anything about kids programming or where to park or even what to dress like? Maybe we can get into that a little later, but the photos on your website can give people a cue towards like, are people wearing suits and ties? Are people in their jeans and their sweats? What kind of a church is this that they're attending?
Yeah.
And so the website can help facilitate like the ease of entry into the Sunday experience, but then more so it's the pointer, I would say, out of the Sunday experience. So one of the things I say a lot is digital first, but not digital only with all things communications in your church. And so in that, for example, the first and best place people who've had a Sunday morning experience with you would respond by signing up for a program, expressing interest in serving, maybe wanting to share their information with you about who they are, or ask a question, seek prayer, whatever. The best and first place they would think to go should be your website. And then we can supplement that with print materials for all kinds of reasons that are either accessibility issues or even just strategic reasons to emphasize, to have extra emphasis on paper. But that digital experience should be where someone would expect to sign their kid up for a program, because that's what they do now in every other part of their life.
Yeah, good. All right, so let's get into some real practical stuff. We're going to walk through 10 things to consider when building your website, especially for first-time guests, keeping our first-time guests in mind. The first one you have is to build your website to be mobile-friendly. Let's walk through that for me.
Yeah, well, I think more and more, from when I wrote this till now, it's only increased. Most people, if you can look in the stats of your website, which most websites would have, it wouldn't be hard to find them. If I can't really tell you where to find them because each website, it would be in a different place. But in the background, they're gathering stats on how people look at your website. And if you look, you're probably going to see that most people, the majority of people, are accessing your website on their phone or their tablet. And so it's very frustrating when people go to your website and they can't click on something because they have to be on the desktop version or the laptop version of the website, or they things are distorted, or they can't fill out a form with their thumbs. They have to go to a full keyboard. We want to think about, and now most template-based websites automatically translate the site from a desktop browser to a mobile browser, which is an awesome thing that kind of happens without a lot of techie skill behind the scenes if you're not equipped with that kind of experience. But it is the place people are most likely going to look at your website first. And then also, if you're asking people for a call to action, an invitation to do something out of your service, they can do it sitting or standing in the lobby or sitting in the service right on their phone if your website's mobile friendly.
So you mentioned templates. So that's our number 2 here is you're suggesting use a template. Why do you suggest that, and who do you suggest to use?
Yeah, well, the templates, when I say that, I'm speaking to the average church, which is not a large church. I think if you have a large church with a large budget, you can do something really customized and pay people tens of thousands of dollars to create that for you.
Yep.
But if you're an average church of a few hundred people, the technology has evolved so much. I mean, even just in the last, 10 years ago, even 6 years ago, we were paying, I think we paid like $15,000 or I don't know to build a website because we needed someone to customize it. And now all of that same resources available in template sites like Squarespace. I mean, I love the guys at the Church Co, but there's lots of companies out there that can, help you with a template-based site so that not only is it more affordable to build, but I think the other key to it is you can most likely edit it. If you know how to use a web browser and a Word document and a PowerPoint presentation, if you've got that down, you can probably edit this website. You don't have to have coding skills. I find some of these websites, you spend a lot of money to build it. It might look great, but then no one on your staff has the skill set to change it. So when you want to add a new event or you want to make a change, you have to go pay somebody outside your team to go do that for you because it's too complicated. So the templates help you add a new page, change a page without too much cost.
Is there a certain platform that you would suggest I be on? Like, do I need to be a WordPress site? Do I need to?
I mean, there are so many now. As I've said, I think WordPress. So the Church Co are friends who I really love in this space because they do it so affordably. They'll build the website for you and then you maintain it. They're based on WordPress, and Squarespace is great if you want to go at it yourself. Or there are people who you could hire to help build the Squarespace website, and then you could maintain it. Some people like Wix. I'm not a big fan of Wix. I think it has a lot of limits. It might look good at first, but then, probably a few months in, you'd find yourself frustrated, in my opinion, with some of the things that it can do for you. But there are, I mean, maybe Carl, some others, but there are definitely a bunch out there that are, easy to find. And that's where too, even if it's a template site, you could hire someone to help you build it, but then it would be easy enough for you to maintain or to add on to afterwards.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think Paul Cox at the Church Co. and the guys at Subsplash, and then Tithely is kind of getting into that space as well. And I think really any one of those would could fit your needs. But I very much agree with you that make sure that you're on a platform that your staff can maintain. Because whether that's whatever you choose, make sure that it's accessible to your staff and that it's easy to do, because yes, people can get into having to spend thousands of dollars just for small edits or creating a simple page or whatever. So don't get trapped in that. I'd agree with you. Okay. Number 3 is, and we mentioned this a little bit, is your website needs great photos of your church life. Cannot agree more with this. So talk about that for me.
Yeah. Well, it makes me so sad. Don't make me sad, my friends. Don't make me sad when I go to your website and all the photos are from some stock website. They're clearly not your people. And, most of us can tell pretty quickly that they're stock photos. I think stock photos have their place and they can be used, as needed. But for something as important as a website, I suspect that in most church communities, there is someone who has even with like the latest iPhones, some of these, the Samsung, just some amazing cameras out there on phones. But surely there's someone in your church, who you could, whether as a volunteer or even hire them for a few $100s, whatever you can afford, who would be willing to take some photos on a Sunday of the life of the church. Maybe come to a barbecue or something you're doing outside and take some photos of the life of the church, because then when people come to your website, they see the real people, and they know it's the real people. I think it builds trust right away, but also I think it gives a cue to the types of people that go to your church, where if you use a stock photo it starts to look like a government ad, where you check off every box of diversity in one photo and they're all standing on a white background. Like, everyone knows that's not your church. That's just some photo, where your church is full of beautiful people who should be represented on your website.
Yeah. And there are great stock sites out there, but I think some of it's popularity, some of it's the only place to go, that kind of thing. But if I see the same light stock photos and I love the Baileys and Rob Thomas and the Igniter guys who bought light stock. I mean, fantastic services, and they have their place, definitely. But I can see the same light stock photo in a bunch of different churches, and we know it's not your church.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knows.
That's it. Even if, some churches that are, more organized towards this, they'll take photos once a month or every week even. But if your church even twice a year, like in the warm weather season and the cold weather season, so you have people in different kinds of clothes, or you choose a winter service and a baptism summer service or something, and you have twice a year someone take photos, that would be enough probably for the website. And I understand if you need to use stock photos for an event promotion or, on social media or something, there's places that stock photos are a great asset, and I'm glad they exist. But on your front page of your website, I would love to see your people, because those are the people are expecting to meet when they show up.
And I think the same is true for video as well. So we've done a lot of, cutting together footage to put on a homepage. Mm-hmm. And we're constantly asking the church to either find someone local or have someone in your church shoot some stuff, because it matters to show your own people. So if it's if it's still photos on your homepage or throughout your website, and a mixture of video as well, I would suggest both. Show your people if you can. So good point. All right, number 4 is accuracy matters. So how important is the information on my church website? How important is that?
Oh my goodness.
Is it for it to be accurate?
I spend a lot of time on church websites. And again, if, these are like the pain points, the pet peeves, the places of like hurting Joanna personally. I don't know, somehow it feels more personal than it should. If it's Easter and you're still on the front page talking about Christmas services, that's not okay. Like, surely someone in the first week of January could have had on their schedule to go and remove that stuff. And now it's months later and it's still there. My point being, accuracy is about having timely information and the right days and times. Or I've seen this too, where the service time changes or the location changes or something happens. I mean, certainly with, pandemic life, sometimes things are changing quite rapidly. But as you're communicating out by email or other ways that you're communicating changes to the church, even if they're last minute, on a checkbox should be, have we changed that information also on the website? Because it's very easy for things to get lost. Some pages on a website are fairly static. That is, you build an About Us page and it kind of stays the same until you make a new website. Or you get a new pastor or something. But there are other pages that they change all the time. An event page, a calendar page, maybe the current series or sermons that you're teaching. The home page would be a page that needs to constantly be maintained. It's like a garden. It can, the weeds need to be pulled and it needs to be pruned and trimmed and watered and fertilized. Mm-hmm. And that's how really we should look at a website, so that we have accurate information. There's nothing worse than someone showing up as a guest and they're awkwardly 30 minutes early or 30 minutes late or in the wrong place. Like, if you're a portable church, the location is said to change for some reason that week. People show up at the old place. They're so frustrated. They work so hard to get there, and then they're not even in the right place. They got their kids in the back who are crying, all that stuff that's happening. They're not going to come again because you've broken their trust because you didn't have the right information, where it would have taken 5 minutes. If you have something like a template site, could have taken just 5 minutes to change.
So I use the example of a dirty closet a playroom in my house that, is filthy, and we just kind of close the door, or a closet that you're, stuffing stuff in, and to not let our website be the dirty closet that we never go into.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to have guests over, especially the front door through my living space and the stuff that people are going to see, and is very public in view, I want to make sure that that's cleaned up and tidied and up to date or whatever. And so, the same is true for my website. I think there are some churches that kind of we have a website, it's there, we don't really touch it. I haven't really gone to it.
Yeah.
And so it's just know that that's what your first time guests are seeing and experiencing, is that you haven't tidied up. So I would say also too, when it comes to accuracy, I want to get your opinion on this, is you mentioned series, but your sermon library. If I go to your sermon library and the latest series that's up is July of 2017, then obviously I know that something's fallen off somewhere and that you're not updating it. And I'm going to get that information. So are there other places like that is important?
Oh, yeah. Well, the sermon library. I mean, I think some of this is, we're talking in the midst of, we've done 10 years of speedy change in the last 12 months for a lot of churches, where some things were forced to change because of lockdowns or pandemic scenarios, or not everyone feeling safe and comfortable to come in the building. It depends on what area of the country you're in, but there's been like a speed of change. So I guess I would hope that in 2021, there aren't that many churches that don't have their sermons fairly recently up on the website, within the last couple of weeks, because there are people who just physically can't attend in person. It's also, of course, very, really important for the first-time guests to have an opportunity if they want to check out. People might binge listen to or watch the videos of a bunch of messages and then decide to come. So it's even a decision-making factor, in the same way that people might binge watch a bunch of videos on vacuum reviews before they go out and buy a vacuum and spend $500 on a vacuum. People do the same with churches. Yeah. And I don't think that has to be a bad thing. I think that can be, like a really, really cool opportunity for people to connect with you before you even knew they were connecting with you. So, I mean, in terms of the website, of course, as I've said, like classic things is, seeing Christmas or Easter advertised months after those holidays have ended. You probably made a big push to make sure that kind of information was on the website because it's a really important event in the church. But then did it get removed afterwards? Or I don't know, seeing it's, in some churches, if someone has had to leave the church, but their face is still on the website months after they work there, or phone numbers and emails change. There's so many things that as you've said, that are those not static pages, but changing pages. We want to just make sure that we're up to date.
Yeah, good. All right. So number 5, and we've talked about this, is to post your sermons online, and the importance of, making sure that that's there so that people can digest that content, watch that content. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Digesting and watching content. Sorry, I've said sorry. Can you say that again?
Yeah, just the importance of posting your sermons online and how that's important to first-time guests.
Yeah, well, there's just so much people can get out of a message before, the amazing opportunity to reach people in all corners of the world now who can check out the audio or the video of your messages online. And they may never be able to come physically to your church. So even when posting them, encouraging people to go to your website, it can be whether they've said it in the message or just simply at the end, as a reference point, having a slide up at the end, a text on the end, telling people what some next steps can be. Maybe you want to encourage people to give, or you want to encourage people to get involved in small groups, or if they want to give their life to Christ, what could they do? There's all kinds of ways that you can enhance the content that you're putting up. Even if it was made for a live audience in the room, you can then add something at the end that's like a bump, like a trailer or a bumper on the end, or text on screen to really enhance that experience online on the website for people.
Good. All right, number 6 is filter for religious language. No Christianese.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I experienced this, I studied at a seminary where there was a lot of diversity of denominations, Anglican, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, and Pentecostal. There's so many kinds of people there. So each group had its own lingo. And I didn't know sometimes, even as a lifelong churchgoer, I didn't know sometimes what these people were talking about. So how much more it would be if I wasn't, familiar with church, or if English wasn't my first language, even more so. So, we want our websites to have a bias towards newcomers and guests compared to the regular ongoing attender. There is information there, of course, for the ongoing person to sign up and engage and get information. But we want to think of it as we've said, like that welcome mat, that introduction to the church. So, if we're talking about, for example, we're going to meet in the fellowship hall after the service, like maybe, okay, the fellowship hall is what the room is called, but maybe even on the website, you can explain where that is. Or every denomination, it's hard to give too many examples because every denomination has its own lingo, but I don't know, if you're talking about Palm Sunday, nobody has a clue what Palm Sunday is if you're not from a church. I worked with a church here in Canada, in Quebec, French-speaking Canada. Quebec apparently is the most unreached group for Christ in North America. And so working with a church there, and they had a guy come on the first week of a series in the book of, they were talking about Jonah, the story of Jonah. And in the first week of this series, Jonah got eaten by a whale. And at the end of the church service, this guy comes up to the pastor, and he says to the pastor, I really enjoyed your lecture, and it was too bad that guy got eaten by a whale. And then the pastor's like, oh, well, like, you should come back next week. Like, there's more to the story. The guy doesn't stay stuck in the whale. And then the guy's response is, you do this every week? Like, he didn't know about Jonah and the whale. He didn't know what to call it, which we would call it a sermon or a message. Maybe there's other words in your denomination for it. He didn't know those words, and he didn't even know that you met every week as a church. Like, that's how little he understood. As an English-speaking person in Montreal, a large urban city, he had no context for our faith. And more, that's true across, not just Canada, of course, across the world, across the US and Canada, these post-Christian cultures that are developing. So how can we think of a guy like that when we're writing on a website? To be, people aren't dumb, but they may not know anything about our faith. And so let's not assume that they do when we're talking and writing and talking about altars and communion and sanctuaries. I mean, for some people, a sanctuary is where birds and butterflies live. So, we not want to just help people. So we can use those words because those words might be the right words, but maybe then after, add a paragraph, a sentence in brackets, some more information about it.
Good. All right. So continuing on this path, not just to be sensitive to the newcomer. Number 7 is create an I'm new page. So if I am new, what should be on that page? What information do I need to know?
Yeah. Well, I think we've said this in a few other ways, but to just maybe it's a checklist on having an I'm new page that you go to right from the homepage, like a button that people can click on really obviously on that page, might answer like a ton of their questions all at once. So what time are the services? Where do they go? And actually, where do they park? I've seen some memes on the internet talking about, am I the only one who gets parking anxiety when I go to a place I've never been before? Is it just me? And I'm like, oh, that's like a real thing, especially if you're in a more urban area where parking is less obvious. Like in a more suburban or rural area, everything has large parking lots, but in some places that isn't the case, and parking's more challenging. So we want to talk about parking. We want to talk about childcare. What is it? Who is it for? What ages? Do they need to register in advance? Is it safe? Or what might be some protocols you might have in place for the safety of their child. We want to talk about, maybe we want to include what to wear or what you might expect. How long is the service? What kinds of things happen in that service? Will I be asked to identify myself and raise my hand, or can I just kind of sneak in and check it out without being put on the spot? Those kind of things.
Good. All right, let's go and move on to number 8, and that is introduce the leaders. Now we've talked about staff and making sure that the staff page is up to date. But tell me why it's important as a first-time visitor for me to know who the staff is and know what they look like and think, and a little bit about them.
Yeah, well, for I think the stats on most church websites that I've engaged with, the staff page or the about the staff page is I think it's usually the second most visited site page on your website. And I think that's because people connect to people. We would say the same thing on social media, that people, Craig Groeschel, pastor of Giant Church, people want to connect more to Craig Groeschel than they do Life Church. Life Church they may follow as well, but Craig Groeschel is likely to have a larger kind of following on Instagram or whatever. And that's because people connect with people. People want to know you, and it builds trust with them. I also want to say, do I connect to this person? Is there anything about this person that not only do I trust them, but are they anything like me? Might they understand what I'm going through? So if you're a young family, does that person have a family? Or, if you have a fun little, maybe you have a short bio, maybe you want to add credibility depending on your denomination. Some like the credentials and education is really important to list, and that helps people. But also maybe you want to say that you like coffee and you like your local baseball team, and your summers you go to Florida to the beach or something. The point is to sort of create a touch point of connection, but more than anything, it's the photos. People want to see the faces of the people. They love to read a little bio on them, but they also love to see the faces. I think it also speaks to, in some context, if you're in a more urban context, it means you're more ethnically diverse. By the nature of being in an urban place, the cities are more diverse. And so I think for some people, they want to check on is there anyone here that looks like me at all? Or, just to be honest, is this just like a white church? Only white people here? And that might not mean that people don't come, but people actually are looking for that. They want to see before they show up what to expect.
Good. All right. Number 9. Learn from others. So how do I get inspiration from other churches' websites and other people without straight copying?
Yeah, I think things like that the page we were talking about with the first-time visitor, or the I'm new page, go check out some other churches and see if they have one of those pages, because they might have some content on that page that you hadn't thought to include on your own. So your information is going to be different, but they might prompt you to some good ideas. I think there are definitely trends and styles in websites that change every couple of years, and so we can be inspired by, if we're building a new website, other people's looks and feels. But more than the look and feel, I think it's the content. What are the kinds of things that other churches have consistently shown to be important to them to include on a website? And then, decide if you don't have that, maybe you want to create a page for that as well.
Good. Okay, last one, number 10, and that is less is more. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a website and it's just long paragraphs of text. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of copy on the site, or just a lot going on that I can't figure out. Buttons everywhere, or menus that have 20 different options on each menu item. So tell me how, the importance of less is more.
Yeah. Well, It is a reference point, but it doesn't have to be a library archive of every single documented thing. Like, for example, some church websites, they have page after page, paragraph after paragraph of like board documents or, elder policies. And, that thing maybe could just be a simple, like, if you really wanted those to live on the website, it could be a link that clicks out to a whole Google Drive folder of those kinds of policies and procedures if you wanted them to live somewhere that the public could access. But I think most people, first of all, look at the stats and data of your website. What are the pages that people most like to go to and engage with? And then spend the most time making those as strategic, simple, clean and clear as possible. And then you're going to probably discover that those long pages of paragraphs of text and, I don't know, endless scrolling of what your doctrine is and all that kind of stuff, you can make that accessible, but you probably don't need it all on the website itself. And you'll probably discover that very few people click on it. Very few people read it. Very few people are interested. So it doesn't have to be withholding of that content, but it can even be as simple as like, do you want more information? Click this email, info@bethelchurch.com or whatever it is. And they can get that information. So you can still be open without it having to be just like a brain dump, because it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's harder to update. It's harder to keep it up to date with the most current information. And people just aren't generally looking for that kind of stuff. The same thing even with a sermon archive. I know for some pastors, it really is their life's work, these sermons. And so I would argue that all of the sermons they've ever preached do not need to live on your website. But if that's the hill that they, don't need to die on that hill. If they want all their sermons they've ever preached for the last 25 years to be on the website, okay, I would say the data would show that people aren't watching or listening to most of those messages. But if you had like a best of or like the highlights of, the last 10 years or something, that it would actually make people more able to engage with your content rather than just a huge dump, a library of content that people
or
don't
have
know
the
how
last
to make meaning out of.
The last few months worth of series or content, and then maybe there's a store in your church or some type of other distribution method, 8 tracks or I'm just kidding. So something that you can put that library somewhere else where it's not taking up space on your website as well, because some of that video and audio is just sucking up the space that you're paying for hosting.
And more than that, it actually affects search engine stuff.
Right.
So if your website is slow to load, Google doesn't like that. And most people are going to Google to try and find their local churches. And so if your website, for example, even just, I would say, don't have a video playing. It's, a lot of churches like to do like a video playing at the top of the screen when people come to their homepage, but it actually slows down the loading of the page. And then Google pushes you down in the search results because your page is slow to load. And also on mobile apps, usually those videos don't work anyways. And most people are checking on the mobile app. So why not just make your page fast and simple to load? And the same with, bogging it down with all this old content that you can see in the data behind the scenes. People aren't looking at it, aren't clicking on it, aren't engaging with it. Well, then just get rid of it. It can live somewhere else, in a Google Drive, a Dropbox somewhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Dropboxer. Good. Well, so where do you see us going? Is there any trends in websites that we need to be aware of to make sure that we're following over the next year or foreseeable future?
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the trend is just like less is more, like simple, engaging content websites are going to be the huge thing. I think things that are like very media driven. People are there for content consumption. People are there to have, I think, chat functions within websites. If you don't already have one, it's a widget or something that you can add, to directly on so many of the websites now. For companies, they have this direct, chat function where you can talk to a real person right away. more and more churches are doing that during business hours. I guess you can decide what hours those people are available to chat with you, but you can have like the administrator or someone responsible actually live chatting back and forth with someone on your website, engaging them right away, answering a question, making a meaningful connection, maybe praying for someone, whatever it may be. I would love to see more churches take advantage of that. It's not, from a build perspective, it's not hard to build that into your website. It's just that someone needs to be there to reply. It has to pop up on their screen while they're working so that they can engage with it.
Good. Well, thanks for going through this. It's very, very practical stuff. Hopefully anybody can kind of take this and use it. Have you gotten back to kind of normal speaking and consulting? You were saying that tomorrow you're doing we're going to travel and now you're not, and you have to do it digitally, but,
well, it's all, all over the place. Canada has been in general more like Europe in terms of strictness of some of the restrictions off and on over the course of the last year. So I was supposed to speak at a conference live tomorrow. So the conference was going to be recorded live, and there were going to be a certain amount of people in the room, and then people watching, live stream over the internet. But now the rules have changed within the last few days because case counts are going up and the ICUs are full, and the story over and over. It feels like a bad dream that doesn't end. And, it's real people's lives that are being affected. But all to say, I'm going to today record my talk here at home and send it in, because I'm just not I'm not allowed to go in person. And I hope a couple of weeks from now, and certainly a few months from now, as more vaccines or, whatever are happening, that things will open up again. Yeah, but my world has certainly shifted, as with many other people's. And so, I just feel so much for pastors and ministry leaders who, for the most part, the people leading a church are probably a baby boomer or Gen X generation, and none of them were trained for this in school. This was, and so that's where, what you do, Carl, and, what I try to do to serve the church is to come alongside and help where people just need real practical skills and training and tools, media content, because nobody knew they were signing up for this. Yeah.
Well, as we close today, tell me how to get your podcast. What is it? What do you do on the podcast, and how can I listen to it?
Podcast is called Word Made Digital, play off of John chapter 1, where the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. What do we do when the Word has become digital? So the podcast is on wherever you listen to podcasts. If you Apple, Spotify, Google Play, we've got it on YouTube. You can just search for it, or wordmadedigital.com. You'll find everything there. I've got a bunch of tutorials. If this kind of content is what people need more of, there's lots of tutorials at wordmadedigital.com around all kinds of practical things, like how to host a Zoom meeting or how to talk to a camera, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, and really appreciate it. Hope you can get out of your place and go and speak like normal. And
yes,
but you have a great view out of your new pad.
That's true.
That's the most important.
If stuck at home, my views are good. So I'm grateful for that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Carl, today.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Philo folks. I'm Dr. J, and I work with all kinds of leaders and teams, and there's always somebody like you out there helping me look good. It's your contributions that are helping me sound good, look good, come across well, basically helping me make a big impact on the people that I serve. So I'm really psyched to be with you in Chicago this year at the Philo Conference, because I get to flip the script and give back to you. I get to contribute to what you do. Not so much the technical aspects of your role, but I get to give you some tips and some tactics that'll help you deal with the organization you're in, that'll help you work with volunteers, help you fire up your people and do extraordinary things for Christ and His kingdom. So I'm looking forward to seeing you. Join us in Chicago this year for Philo. We'll have a great time together.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
It is not too late to get your tickets for Philo, May 11th and 12th. It's coming fast. I'll be there in Chicago and online with you as well. If you are planning on coming, please stop by our 1230 Media booth. We would love to meet you and say, hey, this is a digital event with an in-person audience. So it will be a hybrid experience. There will be folks there in Chicago at Willow Creek Community Church, as well as online. So if you're there in person, I'd love to say, hey, swing by our booth. If you're there online, please find me in a chat window. I'll be hosting one of the communications and creativity breakout, that entire track. I'll introduce all the speakers in that track. So I'll be there online in the chat. I'll be around, so please try to find me. I would love to speak to you and say hello. Philo.org, Philo, philo.org to get tickets to Philo this year. All right, next week on the show, I welcome Justin Nava from Mr. Church Marketer. I'll be talking with Justin about digital evangelism. So we'll be bouncing topics from websites to social media, to all kinds of stuff, all around the idea of how to reach people digitally with the gospel. So our blog and podcast is completely free. I can't wait to have Justin on next week to talk about those topics. And I'm just really excited to share with you each and every week. Again, our blog and our podcast is completely free. You can get all of it at 1230.media/training. That's 1230.media/training. You can also check out some really affordable books to help you train your staff, your volunteers, your leaders. 1230.media/training for all of that. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out this week. Go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit MakingSundayHappen.com.